This is a really good movie that makes a really bad movie look like a really good movie. The Disaster Artist stars James Franco and his brother Dave in a film that focuses on the life of Tommy Wiseau, I said it wrong in the room review, and his best friend Greg as they try to figure out how to live a luxurious life in Hollywood. So they decide to make their own movie when Hollywood basically rejects them in any major movie or TV show or anything like that. I wasn't the biggest fan of The Room. I do understand where people are coming from when they say it's hilarious as to how bad it is, and that is the case, but it wasn't made to be like that. It was made to be a big drama movie. At least that's what Tommy's vision was. What I wanted to see with The Room, I ultimately saw with The Disaster Artist. Here's Tommy. He is such a strange person who's really all out there, while everybody else around him is basically normal. That's what I wanted to see from The Room. A big contrast that really made the movie funny for being bad. However, that's not the case, but it is the case in The Disaster Artist. Let's get into it. First up is the people category, going over the acting, characters, casting, importance, and chemistry, all of which gets perfect scores. I was pretty much blown away by the performance of James Franco specifically, but also the fact that everybody that plays these parts in this movie were brilliantly casted, as everybody seems to be perfect for the roles into what they're doing, who they're playing, and it's all really done well. Everybody works really well together. You really believe their performances. You really believe everything in this is genuine. People score is 10 out of 10 possible stars. Next up, we look at the writing category, which goes over the dialogue, the balance of the film, the depth of the actual story, originality, and how interesting it is. Once again, everything here gets full points. Funny enough, the dialogue that was made famous from The Room, I think, makes more of an impact in The Disaster Artist when they do those lines because of how important it feels in comparison to The Room. These lines are now more memorable because the movie is telling you that they're basically memorable lines. The balance of the film, actually, I mean, for a true story, you're talking about these two people that are trying their hardest to make it in the world and follow their dreams and make it as big movie stars. It's a great balance. It has a good focus. The depth of the story, of course, is following your dreams, but beyond that is expecting the unexpected. I consider this pretty original, just like The Room. I consider that original. I consider this original. And of course, it's interesting. It's a very interesting take on the movie, and I was kind of interested in how it came to be. Writing category gets 10 out of 10 possible stars. The BTS category goes over the visuals, directing, editing, advertisement, and music and sound, all of which gets perfect scores except for the visuals and the music and sound. Those get half points. Nothing really terribly wrong with the visuals. I think if you're going to talk about how great the visuals are, it has something to do with how well it matches with what they were doing with The Room, but that has more to do with the directing. So James Franco did a great job directing. He made everything match really well with what was going on in The Room and why it looks like that, so that's awesome. The editing contributes to the directing in terms of making all the cuts and everything match exactly with how The Room did things when they were remaking those scenes, so that's awesome. The advertisement, I gotta say, it is as advertised. All it really comes down to is the music and sound, which is fine. The BTS category gets 8 out of 10 possible stars. The narrative arc category goes over the introduction, inciting incident, obstacles, climax, and falling action, all of which, again, gets perfect points. The introduction does a good job of introducing you who Tommy is, who Greg is, and ultimately who everybody in the gang is. The inciting incident is ultimately when they decide on a whim to move to Los Angeles, try to be big stars. The obstacles is trying to figure out how to become stars, even though everybody is basically just rejecting them over and over and over, and they ultimately decide to make this movie. And then there's even more obstacles to overcome when they decide to do that. The climax is the end product of the movie, The Room and what that means as a whole, which really transitions into the falling action, the calming down, returning to a new norm, which is definitely there. Narrative arc is 10 out of 10 possible stars. The entertainment score goes over how rewatchable it is, how much of a good time you have while watching, if you have an impulse to buy it or own it, impulse to talk about it, and if it sucks the audience in. Now, I wouldn't say this is a super entertaining movie. I would say it's more interesting than entertaining. So when it comes down to rewatchable, I don't know. I think I probably would rewatch it, but not in the case where I would be going out to find it. If I ran into it, I might watch it again. So that gets half points. I did have a good time while watching. Like I said, it is interesting and it piqued my interest throughout the film, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Good time, fun experience. That gets full points. I have no impulse to buy it. I don't really have an impulse to own it either, so that gets 0. I have no impulse to talk about it other than this review. I think this covers it for the most part. I don't feel like rushing off to somebody saying you gotta check this out, and I don't really think there's too much discussion-worthy element past what I said in this review. So that gets 0. And does it suck the audience in? Here and there, especially when they're remaking those scenes in The Room that are famous at this point. That only gets half point. So the entertainment category only gets 4 out of 10 possible stars. Special category. Now these are the things I wanted to see before I saw the movie. They are, first and foremost, this is a biographical film on Tommy Wiseau. So how does it focus on his life from the moment they meet to when they make The Room? I think that does a really accurate depiction on their life and who they are as people. That gets 10 out of 10 possible stars. As a drama, I think it does a pretty good job of having those strange relationships that Tommy has with Greg, but also Tommy has with everybody around him because nobody understands him, but how that works to the advantage of the filmmaking process. Drama gets 10 out of 10 possible stars. Comedy, I finally understand how people see this as a funny movie. I think this movie is pretty funny, so this gets full points, 10 out of 10 possible stars as well. As a true story on its own, how accurate is it? I did some fact checking, as usual with true stories, and it was pretty darn close. Full points, 10 out of 10 possible stars. Finally, was it a halfway decent movie? And I think for the most part, absolutely. I think James Franco did a great job directing the movie. It feels great. It feels like a good, true story movie that follows a plot, which is great. So I gotta give halfway decent. Full points, 10 out of 10 possible stars. If we add up everything, we get 92 out of 100 possible stars, 92%. A whole 70% better than I rated The Room. Guys, tell me what you thought of The Disaster Artist in the comments down below. And as for YouTube, you can subscribe to me, hit that like button, and hit that bell to be notified when I come out with my next review, which won't be until next week. I got some work stuff to figure out tomorrow, so I won't be reviewing a movie on Friday. But I will be back next week on Monday. Until then, guys, peace out.